It all begins with the news that the evil galactic empire has finally fallen. But even now, scattered across the galaxy, a few imperial leaders still cling desperately to the power they once ruled with. We then see one of these leaders declaring that he must hold control until the entire galaxy realizes what it lost and demands the empire's return. With complete conviction, he raises his voice and shouts, "Long live the empire!" Right after that, he delivers the bad news. Taxes across every system under his control are going up. But one of the council members cuts him off, warning that the trade routes are crawling with pirates and raiders, openly questioning the Lord's ability to protect them. That single moment of doubt unleashes his rage, and without hesitation, he brutally executes the man right in front of everyone. Just then, an unexpected alert comes in. An intruder has breached the base. Panic instantly starts spreading through the room, but the Lord insists there's nothing to worry about, claiming reinforcements are already on the way. Everyone braces for the invader's arrival, only to discover it's none other than the Mandalorian himself. The Lord immediately panics and runs for his life, while the Mandalorian hunts him down without slowing for a second. At the same time, we also see little Grogu, who now has far better control over his powers and manages to blow up a droid using the Force. Not long after, Grogu hides while the Mandalorian violently wipes out several Imperial soldiers. He then picks up the kid and takes control of a massive combat mech, using it to smash through enemy troops and destroy the reinforcements sent by the Imperial Lord. From above, the leader watches in horror as the Mandalorian keeps pushing forward against all odds. Neither armor, nor droids, nor the Empire's war machines can stop him. And right in the middle of all the blaster fire and explosions, he still carries Grogu in his arms while tearing through every enemy standing in his way. Completely desperate, the Imperials prepare even more reinforcements to finally bring him down, because the Mandalorian seems almost unstoppable. Side by side with Grogu, he keeps fighting and taking down soldiers one after another until he suddenly disappears from everyone's sight. Moments later, the Mandalorian reappears on top of a gigantic Imperial machine. Even though only the pilots remain, the Lord orders them to attack him immediately. The men obey, but the second they get close, the Mandalorian takes them down within seconds. Completely overwhelmed, the Lord escapes in a small ship. From the top of the machine, the Mandalorian quickly lines up a shot, and the moment he hits it, the ship explodes in midair. Still, he manages to escape the blast in time alongside Grogu, and both are rescued by Zeb Orrelios, who often joins him on different missions. Later on, we travel to Adelphi, where Grogu and the Mandalorian finally arrive. There, they meet Colonel Ward, an important leader of the Adelphi Rangers, who works for the New Republic, and for whom the Mandalorian now takes on bounty hunting jobs. Ward was actually the one who assigned him the mission against the Imperial Lord. The Mandalorian asks for more time to finish wiping out the remaining Imperial forces, but she tells him she still needs him for other jobs. He even hints that he probably won't get paid for the mission, though Ward assures him he'll be rewarded. She then takes him outside the base to show him an impressive new ship meant for him. Since the ship's value is way higher than the Imperial loot, Ward explains that his next mission will be to capture Colonel Coin. But before leaving, Ward tells him he first has to meet with the Hutt twins, since they were the ones who agreed to connect him with Colonel Coin. On top of that, they also want him to rescue their nephew. However, she makes it clear that they'll only hand over the full information face to face, meaning he really has no choice but to meet them in person. That's when she mentions the name Rota the Hutt, Jabba's own son. Ward insists that all he has to do is complete the mission. Even though the Mandalorian makes it clear he no longer works for gangsters or crime syndicates, she coldly reminds him that he now works for the New Republic, and as long as he's under their command, he does the job. With very few options left, the Mandalorian boards his new ship to test it out. But just as he's about to fire it up, Grogu jumps in and starts messing with the controls, pulling a little stunt that almost ruins the takeoff. Eventually, the Mandalorian gets the ship running, and the two blast into hyperspace at light speed. But the moment they arrive, they're intercepted by two mysterious ships that clearly don't look friendly. Over comms, they immediately demand identification. The Mandalorian responds that he was personally invited by the Hutt twins, and after several tense seconds, they finally grant him permission to land in Hutt territory. Knowing perfectly well, this is one of the most dangerous and heavily guarded places in the entire galaxy, packed with weapons and criminals. The Mandalorian explains the situation to Grogu. He makes one thing very clear: just because they were invited doesn't mean they're safe. Not long after, they finally arrive before the Hutt twins, who claim they now have the honor of meeting the legendary Mandalorian at last, and that working with him will be a true pleasure. Still, he quickly makes it clear that he doesn't work for them. He works for the New Republic. The twins then explain that their nephew has been kidnapped, and they insist they're devastated by what happened. They even ask the Mandalorian to imagine how he would feel if little Grogu ever disappeared one day. After that, they show him an old image of Rota back when he was still young, though they admit he probably looks completely different now. Finally, they reveal that Rota is being held on the dangerous moon of Shakari. And with that, the Mandalorian's new mission officially begins. Together with his loyal ally, Zeb Aurelios, they travel straight to Shakari Moon. Once there, the Mandalorian and Grogu land and begin walking through the dark streets of the place, surrounded by criminals, merchants, and strange locals from that forgotten moon. Searching for information, the Mandalorian approaches a vendor, an Ardenian named Hugo, and hands him a coin in exchange for answers. But the second the man hears the Hutts mentioned, he gets nervous and swears he won't talk for anything in the galaxy. Still, the Mandalorian keeps pushing and offers him even more credits. Eventually, the guy finally gives in and reveals that the gladiator's name is Rota, although across the moon, most people know him as an absolute monster. He then shows them a massive poster promoting his fights. That's when we discover Rota now takes part in brutal underground combat matches, becoming a true celebrity inside the fighting arenas. The Mandalorian and Grogu then head over to watch one of his battles, hoping to find the perfect chance to approach him. Once the fight is over, the Mandalorian and Grogu finally meet Rota face to face. They explain that they were sent to rescue him under orders from his uncles, but Rota calmly responds that he doesn't need rescuing at all. According to him, the next day will be the final fight of his contract, and once it's over, all his debts will be paid and he'll finally earn his freedom back. A few moments later, Rota notices Grogu and asks the Mandalorian if he can get the little guy something to eat. After he agrees, the Mandalorian takes the chance to ask exactly who Rota owes money to. Rota then reveals that all his debt belongs to Lord Janu, the leader of the criminal syndicate controlling every moon in Shakari. He was the one who paid for Rota's training and turned him into a fighter. Still, Rota insists that after tomorrow's match, he'll finally be free from every obligation. Rota even turns out to be far kinder than anyone ever expected. Grogu slowly starts getting closer to him without any fear, and Rota assures him he can relax because he's nothing like his father, Jabba the Hutt. He explains that inside the fighting arenas, he actually feels alive, especially when the crowd cheers for him and treats him like a living legend. And before leaving, he repeats one more time that he does not need to be rescued. Later that night, the Mandalorian returns to Hugo to find out where he can locate Lord Janu. The man explains that everyone there pays the Lord for protection. He barely makes enough to survive, but at least he's still alive. Then the Mandalorian asks where he can find him. In the end, the Mandalorian hands the vendor another coin, since during the entire conversation, Grogu had quietly started eating food from the man's stand. The Mandalorian eventually reaches a salt trading post and directly asks for Lord Janu, but the men there immediately start mocking him, and one of them asks how much he'd charge for the little creature, talking about Grogu. But the Mandalorian isn't in the mood for jokes. In a cold tone, he asks again where Lord Janu is. When nobody wants to answer, a brutal fight suddenly breaks out, straight out of John Wick, as the Mandalorian takes down every man in the place in epic fashion while Grogu hides nearby to stay safe. After proving just how dangerous he is, the Mandalorian is finally invited inside to get information about Lord Janu. And thanks to the fight, he also earns a ration of salt, since on that world, salt is heavily rationed. Lord Janu was there the entire time. The moment he sees him, he asks if the Mandalorian has ever considered fighting in the combat pits, but the Mandalorian answers that he's actually there to buy Rota the Hutt's debt. Lord Janu immediately makes it clear that's not up for negotiation. He explains that he gathered the deadliest creatures from across the galaxy, and that Rota will die in tomorrow's match, although only a handful of people know that secret. He even tells the Mandalorian he should bet on the Hutt's death as a personal gift to him. Then he offers him a spot in the fighting pits, claiming that a Mandalorian in the arena would become a legendary spectacle, and that together they could make a fortune. Before leaving, Lord Janu hands him a small amount of salt, but as the Mandalorian walks away, he leaves the salt behind inside the same cup belonging to the man he fought earlier. He then tells Grogu they're gonna have to do this the hard way. Moments later, he sends Grogu to open the door to the room where Rota is being held. When Grogu sneaks inside, he signals for him to stay quiet. The Mandalorian explains to Rota that Lord Janu is planning to have him killed, and that he came there to get him out. He also reveals that the fight is designed as a death match, where Rota will be forced to battle multiple creatures until he dies. On top of that, he assures him that his uncles want him back alive. Still, Rota responds that the Hutt twins actually want him dead because he's the true heir to the throne, not them. But he also makes it clear that he doesn't even want the throne, because now he enjoys the cheers of the crowd inside the arenas and refuses to become someone like his father. The Mandalorian tells him fighting isn't a sport and that he needs to leave with him before things spiral out of control. But instead, Rota calls in the guards, who quickly knock the Mandalorian unconscious. When he finally wakes up, he realizes the fight has already started. On top of that, Grogu has been locked inside a cage, while Rota is forced to face the Mandalorian in the arena. High above them, Lord Janu watches the battle with a smile, while Rota still doesn't understand that the Mandalorian truly came there to save him. During the fight, the Mandalorian manages to take Rota down, but the second the crowd starts cheering for Rota's death, the Mandalorian suddenly surrenders and declares that Rota the Hutt is the winner. Then he demands that Lord Janu grant him his freedom. The crowd starts cheering wildly for Rota, and for a moment, he actually seems happy, until Lord Janu finally reveals his true intentions. He suddenly activates multiple laser grids inside the arena and unleashes one of his deadliest creatures, then another one, and then another. The Mandalorian tells Rota that the only way they're getting out alive is by working together, so he tosses him a weapon, and the two immediately start fighting side by side. Together, they manage to take down the monsters one by one, but little by little, exhaustion starts catching up to them, and as even more creatures keep pouring into the arena, the laser barriers eventually shut down, setting every monster loose at once. Realizing the entire situation has spiraled out of control, Lord Janu and the others abandon the place and flee. In the middle of the chaos, the Mandalorian rescues Grogu and escapes alongside Rota, who finally understands the Mandalorian was telling the truth all along and agrees to work with him to survive. However, not long after, Rota steals a vehicle and abandons the Mandalorian, telling him he can't go back. The Mandalorian immediately places Grogu inside a small speeder and takes off after him without wasting a second. The Mandalorian eventually tracks down Rota the Hutt and captures him. He then tells him he doesn't like keeping him chained up, so Rota's going to have to trust him and promise he won't try to run again. He then explains that he was hired for a job and that he now works for the New Republic. Once they make it back to the Hutts, they'll hand over the location of an imperial lord he's been hunting down. But that's when Rota reveals something important. The man he's looking for is actually Lord Janu himself. He even claims he saw stormtroopers working for him, warning the Mandalorian that if he doesn't believe him, he could lose his only shot at catching him. Because of that, the two decide to spy on Lord Janu's compound, and they quickly discover it really is guarded by stormtroopers, meaning getting inside will be far more difficult than they expected. Meanwhile, Lord Janu orders his soldiers to watch every street and stay armed at all times to capture the Mandalorian because he's heard far too much about him. Not long after, the Mandalorian appears before Lord Janu and tells him that everything he heard about him is true and that he's there on behalf of the New Republic to bring him in. But Lord Janu immediately vanishes, leaving the Mandalorian to fight off an entire squad of stormtroopers on his own. After an intense battle, the Mandalorian finally manages to capture Lord Janu and tells him he can bring him in, cold or warm. They then load him onto the ship and prepare to escape the area. However, they need to warm up the main ship's engine before takeoff, so they ask Rota and Grogu for help, but neither of them knows how to do it, forcing the Mandalorian to guide Grogu step by step so he can activate the system properly. Eventually, they get the ship running and begin escaping, though several stormtroopers continue chasing them in their fighters. After a brutal pursuit, the Mandalorian destroys the enemy ships and jumps into hyperspace, finally making it back to Adelphi. There, Ward seems pretty annoyed that he didn't return Rota to the Hutts, even if he did manage to capture the Imperial commander, Lord Janu Coin. The problem is that this completely enraged the Hutts, who are known for never forgiving anything. On top of that, they also lost the massive reward they were planning to pay for getting their nephew back. But the Mandalorian doesn't seem too bothered by any of it, and simply says he's taking a break. He then takes his ship to the Anzellans so they can modify it and make it even faster, while Grogu helps out with the repairs. That's when Rota tells him he shouldn't worry so much about Grogu, because he's lucky to have him by his side. He even admits that when he was Grogu's age, he had absolutely nobody. After that, the Mandalorian explains that he spoke with a contact who can help Rota escape the system, because he knows the Hutt twins will eventually come after him sooner or later, so disappearing is probably his only option. Rota thanks Mando for everything and finally leaves, but someone had been watching them the entire time. Hours later, a new enemy finally appears, Embo. The Mandalorian immediately clashes with him while the Anzellans escape alongside Grogu. But right in the middle of the chaos, Embo's pet suddenly shows up and grabs one of the tiny Anzellans, mistaking him for Grogu. In the end, Embo manages to defeat Din Djarin. That's when we discover he was sent by the Hutt twins, who ordered him to capture Din and bring him back to Nal Hutta. Meanwhile, Grogu can only watch from a distance, clearly heartbroken as they drag the Mandalorian away. Later on, Din Djarin wakes up and realizes that Grogu is no longer with him. However, the enemy knocks him unconscious once again. Meanwhile, we see Grogu preparing alongside the other Anzellans to rescue both Din Djarin and the little Anzellan who was captured. When they finally land in Hutt territory, the tiny Anzellans move forward with Grogu and locate the other Anzellan, who explains that the Mandalorian saved him but is still trapped inside the compound and needs help. The Anzellans then quietly sneak into the facility while the Mandalorian is dragged before the Hutts. There, the Hutt twins pay the bounty hunter for delivering him and then immediately demand that he remove his helmet. The Hutts claim they know the Mandalorian creed very well, reminding him that he'll be cast out if he allows an enemy to see his face. But the Mandalorian coldly responds that won't happen as long as he kills them first. The Hutts then reveal that Rata the Hutt is already back with them, and they tell the Mandalorian that everything that happened is his fault, because if he had never interfered, Rata would have died painlessly. After that, they begin talking about how Hutts can live for hundreds of years, just like little Grogu. Then they tell the Mandalorian that one day he'll die, and Grogu will be left completely alone, with nobody there to protect him. And when that day finally comes, Grogu will be the one forced to suffer. Just as the Mandalorian is about to attack them, the Hutts suddenly throw him into the water below. Down there, a gigantic creature immediately appears and starts battling him. Still, the Mandalorian manages to defeat it. From above, the Hutts watch the entire thing while mocking him, telling him that at least he managed to entertain them. Then they toss his helmet down into the water. But right when Mando is about to grab it, an even bigger creature shows up, a massive dragon serpent. Another brutal fight instantly begins. The Mandalorian finally reaches his helmet and puts it back on before continuing the battle against the monster. Meanwhile, Grogu and the tiny Anzellans hear all the chaos and begin moving closer. The Hutts keep laughing, claiming that even if the Mandalorian somehow survives, the venom will eventually kill him anyway. That's when the Mandalorian notices Grogu arriving with a bomb. The little guy quickly places it down before running back. Everyone immediately starts trying to escape as water begins flooding through the entire place. In the end, the Mandalorian rescues Grogu and the little Anzellans, and together they manage to escape. But the Hutts order their troops to hunt him down and make sure the Mandalorian doesn't get away. Almost instantly, countless enemies begin chasing after him. The Mandalorian finally reaches a small ship, only to realize it's far too tiny for everyone to fit inside. So the Mandalorian decides to send Grogu and the tiny Anzellans away in the ship to keep them safe. Before they separate, he promises Grogu that he'll come back for him. After that, the Mandalorian keeps pushing forward while struggling to fight off every enemy standing in his path. But the poison slowly starts taking effect, and with every step, he grows weaker and weaker. Even so, he refuses to stop fighting. Eventually, he collapses in the middle of the forest, completely exhausted, as countless insects begin crawling toward his body. Just when a massive scorpion is about to sting him, Grogu suddenly appears and eats it. Then he uses his powers to close the Mandalorian's wound and slowly wake him up. Not long after, Grogu realizes they're still searching for the Mandalorian, so he decides to completely cover him with plants to hide him. Then he hides himself too. The entire night passes, and by the next morning, Grogu is still there protecting him. Later, he finds a small container and starts carrying water from a nearby river to help the Mandalorian. After that, he even tries building a tiny dirt cave to hide him inside. But since the Mandalorian's body is way too big, Grogu ends up covering him with branches instead. Then, using his little staff, Grogu heads deeper into the forest to explore. As he moves forward, he runs into a swarm of glowing bugs, and a little later, he spots someone cooking fish nearby. Slowly, he sneaks closer and successfully steals one. After that, Grogu carries the fish back to the cave where the Mandalorian is hiding. The next morning, Grogu stays beside him, almost as if he's praying for him to wake up. But once the fish is gone, Grogu heads back out again to steal more food. This time, however, a creature suddenly grabs him. Luckily, the man from before steps in and saves him, telling Grogu he already knew he'd been stealing his fish the whole time. He then warns him that if he knows the Hutts, he should absolutely fear them. After that, he tells Grogu to leave because the hunter Embo is about to return with his pet. And right at that moment, the Kaibu hound manages to pick up Grogu's scent. Just as Kaibu is about to move closer, the man tells the hunter to keep his pet away from his fish, and the two eventually walk off in another direction. That's when the stranger reveals he's actually kind-hearted. He tells Grogu that the hunter mentioned how he and his partner escaped from the Hutt twins, and that his companion is badly wounded. He also explains that the Mandalorian was bitten by a dragon serpent, and that the venom is extremely deadly. Finally, the man prepares a cure and hands it over to Grogu. He tells him he needs to get the Mandalorian to drink it as soon as possible, but he also warns him that it may already be too late and that the medicine might not work at all. Even so, the man insists he has to try, because sooner or later, everyone has to say goodbye. So Grogu grabs the antidote and immediately runs back to the Mandalorian. The little guy gives him the cure and stays right beside him, waiting. The next morning, Grogu wakes up and discovers the Mandalorian is finally fully recovered. The Mandalorian tells him that first the old protect the young, and then the young protect the old. That is the way. After that, he explains they need to leave the planet as soon as possible. Grogu then shows him that he found the smuggler's ship that was transporting Rota the Hutt. The two climb inside, only to discover the ship is infested with monsters, but the Mandalorian quickly takes them down one by one until he reaches the pilot's seat. Once inside, the Mandalorian tells Grogu they have two choices: use the ship to escape the planet and spend the rest of their lives running from the Hutts, or go back and finish the fight once and for all. In the end, they choose to fight. Using the ship, they make their way toward the Hutt palace and infiltrate the compound. The second the Hutt twins realize the Mandalorian has returned, they order every soldier to kill him immediately. Massive combat droids instantly appear to take him on, while Grogu helps by sneaking inside the machines and cutting their cables to shut them down from within. The Mandalorian finally reaches the Hutt twins and orders Grogu to go free Rota, but just as he's about to finish off the Hutts, Embo suddenly appears. A brutal fight instantly breaks out between Embo and the Mandalorian, while Grogu manages to free Rota. However, right when he tries to wake him up, one of the Hutt twins suddenly appears and is about to swallow Grogu whole, but at the last second, Rota wakes up and smashes the Hutt aside to save him. The twins tell Rota that Jabba is no longer there to protect him, but Rota makes it clear he's not a child anymore and immediately starts fighting back. Meanwhile, Grogu ends up facing off against Embo's hound, but instead of attacking it, he uses the Force to calm the creature down and gently starts petting it. After that, Rota destroys part of the floor, causing everyone to crash into the water below where the dragon serpent was hiding. Luckily, Grogu uses the Force to pull Rota safely out of the water. The Hutt twins then desperately beg Embo to save them, but the bounty hunter chooses to abandon them instead. Seconds later, the dragon serpent finally devours the Hutt twins alive. Meanwhile, the Mandalorian orders Grogu and Rota to escape while he stays behind to fight off the remaining Hutt servants on his own. But right at that moment, the tiny Anzellans finally managed to contact him and tell him they came back, because they promised they would. On top of that, they brought reinforcements with Ward and the rest of the New Republic soldiers. The Mandalorian then tells Ward to fire directly at his position, assuring her he won't still be there once the attack begins. And just like that, the Mandalorian escapes, while Ward gives the order to open fire. The New Republic ships immediately begin blasting the area and completely destroy the Hutt palace. Just seconds before the entire place is wiped out, the Mandalorian, Grogu, and Rota barely manage to escape. That's when Zeb Aurelios arrives to pick them up and jokingly tells the Mandalorian he's honestly lost count of how many times he's had to rescue him. After that, Ward orders everyone to head back home alongside the remaining survivors. Later on, Ward tells the Mandalorian he was right. Lord Coin finally confessed that the Hutt twins had been feeding him information from the very beginning. She then thanks him for everything he did. Finally, Rota tells the Mandalorian that he wants to work for the New Republic because he feels like he still hasn't found his true purpose yet. Before leaving, Rota tells Grogu that his father is an incredible warrior. Then the Mandalorian and Grogu board the ship together for one final ride. Now it's the Mandalorian who starts teaching Grogu how to pilot the ship, telling him that it's finally his turn. In the end, the two jump into hyperspace at light speed together, and that's how the Mandalorian and Grogu comes to an end. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to like and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.